Hey everybody, my name is Brian Haverkamp and I'm the Admissions and Sales Supervisor here at the Akron Zoo. I'm in our boma up at Pride of Africa and I'm here to tell you a little bit about what a boma is and the goats that call the boma the home. So as we talk about a boma, the concept of a boma was created by the Maasai people. It's used to guard their goats and livestock from predators on the outside. The Maasai are one of the most iconic tribes of Africa and they can be found throughout Kenya and in the northern parts of Tanzania. As livestock are an essential part of their culture, they decided to build this concept where they have an outside wall here that is made out of shrubs and long thorns to keep all lions out and other predators. And then they build these huts on the inside where they live, and those huts are just made out of mud. And then on the very inside, you can see this little circle here. That is another fenced-in area where they keep their livestock right in the center of it. So when you're looking at it from above, you can see it just looks like a giant target. So this can be made very quickly, and the Maasai are a group of people that travel, so they need to be able to set up huts and bomas in a very quick fashion and continue to move on throughout the season. Now that we know a little bit about what a boma is, let's go ahead and go over and meet Cooper Christina, and she's going to introduce our goats for us.
Hi guys, I'm Christina. I am one of the primary post-stock keepers here at the Akron Zoo, and I take care of the goats most days of the week. We have 14 goats here at the zoo right now, and I can introduce them all to you. This guy right here is Cash.
Put it closer.
The littlest one here is Rafiki. Over here we have Sinatra. He has very pretty blue eyes. This is Bach, Igor, and Java. Over here we have Mustang and Pinto and Cooper. And then at the back here we have Rizzo, Flash Gordon, Travis, Tango, and Nixon.
So Christina, can you share a little bit of fun facts maybe about some of our different goats' personalities, things like that?
Sure. I'd say it's a pretty easy, common misconception that the little goats are maybe not as tough as the bigger guys. We have 3 goats here that have nice big horns, and they can be a little aggressive. Goats in general like to headbutt each other. It's something they do to form a hierarchy, so they kind of show who's bigger and tougher by headbutting each other. But these little guys are not to be pushed around. They definitely will push back against these big guys, even the ones with the horns. Especially our littlest one, Rafiki, the one with the nice shaggy fur in the back there. He's a nice big tough goat, even though he's the littlest in size.
Alright, as you guys see some of our goats and you want to know a couple more fun facts about them, when you take a look at our goats' eyes, their pupils are actually rectangular and not circular like ours. This helps them because they are grazing animals, so they have their head at the ground all the time as they're eating, and that helps them see out of their side of their eyes, which has really good peripheral vision, so it helps them see everything that's going on around them. However, they can only see whatever level they're on, so you'll see them continuously lift their head up because that lets them see up and down as they can see side to side with those rectangular pupils.
All right. So we have a question. Ellie's asking if the goats are sad that nobody is feeding them crackers.
Our keeping staff, just like Christina over there, are here every day, and they're taking really good care and giving attention to all of these goats here every single day. So they do miss all the people and coming in and seeing them on a daily basis, but they are getting good care. But I know that just like all of us here at the zoo, they can't wait for us to reopen to get everybody back out here to see them.
So Olivia would like to know, how long can their horns get?
I believe that depends on the breed. So these 3 here are Nigerian dwarf goats that have horns, and those are as big as their horns are going to get. They will kind of wear them down. They like to rub their horns on things, so they could grow longer, but they do kind of keep the length down a little bit by rubbing them.
So which of the goats are the oldest?
That's a good question.
Age range.
They are from 1 to 5 here. The youngest ones are the smallest, the pygmy dwarf goats. They all will turn 1 within the next month. and I believe the oldest are our 5-year-olds. We just had a birthday here for 2 of our goats, which are siblings, and that birthday was for Nixon and Travis. So this guy here and this guy here just celebrated their birthday together.
All right, does anybody watching out there like Starbucks coffee or just coffee in general? If so, you can thank a goat for that. There's an old Ethiopian legend of Kaldi and his dancing goats. So goats are just natural grazers, so they're going to eat everything that they see. And as Kaldi had their goats out one day, he saw that they were eating these red berries, and then they had so much energy and they were just jumping around and going crazy. So he thought that was odd, so he took those berries, mashed them up, put them in his own drink, and then he started getting that same energy that the goats had. So later that would be known as one of the first forms of coffee, and we can thank all of these goats here for discovering for us and keeping us all awake on a daily basis.
So Ella wants to know, how many goats do we have here?
We have 14 goats here right now.
So Aubrey wants to know, how do you remember all of their names?
It was really tricky at first, but they each have their own unique personalities, and they all are a little different in their coloration and patterns. Even the ones that look fairly similar in pattern and coloration, they act differently. So as I got to know them a little better, it made it much more easy to remember their names.
Zane would like to know what their favorite food is.
They love all food. They are very food motivated, and they really like hay. They're eating Timothy hay right now. They love crackers, so when we open back up, you guys can come feed them crackers. And they also really like, we have different kinds of sweet feeds that we give them that have great vitamins and minerals, help keep them healthy. They also really like cooked yam and cooked carrot and grapes. They're not very picky animals.
No, and actually with that, with spring right around the corner, we're actually in it, and it's time to start doing yard work. So while you guys are all at home doing yard work, you may notice that you have some poison ivy that needs to be trimmed. These goats, like Christina said, they will eat anything. And goats can actually eat poison ivy, and it doesn't really affect them that much because inside their stomach they have 4 chambers. 3 of them are used for fermentation, which is kind of breaking down all that material, and the 4th one is for digestion. So even though we may touch poison ivy and feel really itchy and get it, these goats can chow through it no problem.
So Nate is asking, how high can they jump?
I don't have an exact answer for that, but they can jump pretty high. I'd say maybe a few feet or so.
Comparison of car. Talk about the comparison of car and goat.
So Sophie is asking, how do they get milked?
We do not milk our goats here. These guys are actually all males, so they do not produce any milk.
So how long can these goats live?
They can live to be close to 15 or 20 years. They do tend to live longer in zoo settings because we do provide them with a lot of great veterinary care. We trim their hooves for them. They get great amounts of food and attention. In the wild, they are not actually found as a wild species. They are all domesticated. It's a domesticated species of animal, but they are found by herding groups and out in more open spaces. And they get great care that way, but here they get individual attention from the keepers and vet staff.
And then if you've ever been to the zoo and you've ever fed our goats, every now and then your hand does get in their mouth, and you'll feel that they don't have any teeth on their upper jaw. They actually have molars on their upper and lower jaw, but their incisor teeth, which are the ones on the very front of their mouth, they only have those on their bottom jaw. So this helps them as they eat, as they continue to graze. You can see that they're eating their Timothy hay and going over and saying hi to Christina. It helps them mash their food even better. So it is done on purpose that they are naturally born without incisors on the top jaw.
So any of our goats related?
Yes, they are. A few of them are siblings. Some of them sharing both parents, some of them sharing just one. The two who just had a birthday, Nixon and Travis over there, they are brothers. They were born on the same day. Pinto and Cooper have both of the same parents, and Mustang also shares the same dad. And then these two here, Cash and Tango, have the same parents as well.
Eliana is asking if we have to groom them.
We do help them shed their fur. So if you look at Mustang here, he's shedding his undercoat. They do a really good job themselves by rubbing their bodies up against rough surfaces, and they help to kind of comb that undercoat out as they're shedding it. We just got through our winter season, and now that it's getting warmer, they're kind of shedding that thicker coat of fur so that they can have keep cooler in the warmer months. But we do have these little brushes that we use to help groom them, and so it just gets all of this really thick undercoat out, and they don't mind when we do this either because it makes them less itchy.
So Layla wants to know, how big are the babies when they're born?
It depends on the breed as well. So these little guys are smaller when they're born, but in general, they're all around a foot in length. And I don't remember exactly the weight, but they're pretty small little guys.
4 to 8 pounds.
4 to 8 pounds.
So Maylee is asking, how many different types of goats do we have?
We have 2 types here. So they do all look very different from each other, but actually the pygmy goats are one breed, and then the Nigerian dwarf goats are the second breed. So all of the larger goats that we have are all the same breed of goat, although they do all look very different. They can come in all kinds of shapes and sizes.
Hey Todd.
Yes.
Can you give me an Australian accent?
Put another shrimp on the barbie.
How about a British accent?
Would you like some crumpets and tea?
A southern accent?
Hey y'all, how y'all doing today? Why are you asking me this, Brian?
Because just like you described, all these goats have different accents as well. So it depends on where they're from and the species. So even though they all may sound the same to us, they do have different accents, and we can actually get to know them by their sounds. So I know that there are days where I'm walking by and I hear Rafiki yell out at me, and I know it's him without even seeing him. So just like us having different accents, all of our goats have completely unique personalities and unique accents as well.
So Carson wants to know if our goats are super playful.
Yes, they are. Especially if anything has any type of food item on it. So to make sure they were out and about for you guys today, I put a bunch of hay out here so that they would graze through their home. And there are enrichment items that we give them to allow them to interact with different things every day, and it helps keep them physically active and mentally stimulated. You can see over here we have Rizzo eating out of an enrichment item. Sometimes they will push things around or headbutt items that we have hanging on exhibit here.
As she talks about the different enrichment items here at the zoo, everybody thinks that enrichment items are just the toys that we put out every day, but that is not always the case. You guys are a part of the enrichment here at the Akron Zoo. We do have crackers that we sell here daily, so you guys can come up and feed the goats. You get to touch them, interact with them, feed them. They absolutely love it. And then it gets them a chance. They're very social animals. Like she said, they're very playful, so it gets them a chance to come up and be with you. So as much fun as you're having, they're having just as much fun with it as well.
So Ryan wants to know, how much do the goats eat in one day?
That's a good question. So we feed them quite a few flakes of hay every day. I don't know the weight of how much we feed them, but they do, in general, as a group, get about 10 flakes of hay every day. So that's a lot of dry grass. And they also get a couple of cups of feed each. And they get crackers, plenty of crackers every day, which they love.
And if you ever doubted their love of crackers, you would have just seen.
They ignore every other food as soon as they see these crackers come out.
They came
Look at this one.
bombarding up.
Look at this little baby right here.
Hi, guys.
Here, buddy.
Gotta give some thought.
So Maddie wants to know if their hair is soft.
Their hair is softer in the winter. When they shed that thick coat, it's actually a little more coarse in the summer. But either way, they feel really nice.
So Danny wants to know, how big can they get?
All of the goats here are about full grown. Even our small pygmy goats, if they do grow more, it won't be a lot. So you can see that they all range in size. Our smallest adult goat is Rizzo over here. So he's actually pretty small for his breed, but he's full grown as well.
Throw him at the keeper.
So what are their favorite enrichment items?
They really like this pool. Even when there's no hay in it, for some reason, they just like to stomp on something different and rub their head on it. They also really like anything that's hanging that they can headbutt. They enjoy their furniture items. So these logs that we have on the exhibit, they like to hop on them and kind of do King of the Hill, who is higher than all of the other goats. And anything that they can really move around with their heads or their hooves, they're very interactive with their enrichment.
And I know earlier somebody brought up about us milking our goats and how we don't have any of those here. But a fun fact is everybody thinks that cow milk is the most popular milk in the world, but that is wrong. Goat milk is actually the most popular milk worldwide. And not only is it the most popular, but it's the most easily digestible out of all the milks out there for everybody as well.
So Ava's asking, how long do the goats sleep in a day?
They sleep a lot. They actually will take naps throughout the day, and they rest for most of the night. So they are most active during the day, with resting mostly at night, but even throughout the day, they will take a lot of naps.
So Olivia's asking, how long is their coat of wool, and do you use their wool for knitting?
We do not use their wool for knitting. They have their undercoat here is nice and thick and soft. So one thing that we do here at the zoo is we can collect this fur, and then once we make sure that it's all sanitary, we can give it to other animals for enrichment so that they have a different feel of a substrate, or even just the smell of the goat is enriching for them. So that's one thing that we do with their fur here.
All right, now a lot of you guys are asking questions we've already answered, so I would encourage you to make sure you watch the video from the start, because we have already answered your questions. Okay, so Jameson is asking why they're separated from the girls.
We actually don't have any female goats here at the Akron Zoo right now. These are all males.
So why do we have all males?
I don't know that there's a reason beyond we aren't planning on breeding or anything like that. So I believe it's just that we happen to get all males, but that could be.
We work with other zoos.
And I know we do work with other zoos, so we get some of these goats from other zoos. Like the 3 that have horns came to us from our friends up north and 40 minutes north of us from the Cleveland Zoo. And then all the other Nigerian goat goats were able to come to us from the Brookfield Zoo. So we work with other zoos, and we tell them kind of what we want, and they are able to help us so we can get these goats out here for all of you.
So why do the goats have larger ears?
Their ears help them to hear, so they develop large ears to be able to hear predators potentially that would be coming if they were out in a herding situation. Here they don't have to worry about that because they are protected with fences, and they have a nice barn here that we keep them in. But large ears also, for most animals, help to keep them nice and cool, so that could definitely be part of it.
So do they ever get in fights?
They do get a little aggressive sometimes with each other, so they do like to headbutt each other, and it is a way of showing who is the more dominant of the goats, and they will back and forth headbutt with each other all the time. Sometimes they will vocalize and kind of show that maybe they didn't like that, but for the most part, it's a behavior that they do all the time, and so it doesn't really seem to bother them too much when they do that.
So Landon wants to know if they ever get too hot or too cold.
We keep an eye on them and keep an eye on the temperature here, so as keepers, we keep a close eye on what the weather will be like for the day, and we adjust what we do with them accordingly. So if we know, for example, that it's going to be really rainy during the day, we don't want them to get stuck out in the rain. So we give them more space inside their barn. If it's really hot overnight, we will put some fans on for them so that they have some cool air moving through and great ventilation. So we also have, their barn is heated and it is insulated, so they are kept nice and warm in our cold days and nights.
So Gabby wants to know, what do they prefer, cold or warm?
Well, this species is from Africa, but they are used as herding animals all across the world. So anywhere where there's grass and something for them to eat, you can find people herding and keeping these animals as either pets or livestock. These guys specifically don't seem to prefer one or the other. I would say if anything, their nice thick fur keeps them warm, so they would maybe prefer cooler temperatures.
And actually, speaking of domestication, goats were the first animals to be domesticated about 11,000 years ago. So as you can see, we talked about how high they could jump earlier. If you want to see the kind of like their cousins, you can come to the zoo and see the Himalayan tahr, which are down in the habitat next to our snow leopard. You'll see they're a little bit bigger, they have some horns, and their habitat is designed differently. It does have cover on it and some rocks for them to climb up because they are still domesticated but not as domesticated as these guys are. So these guys enjoy this open air habitat, the open top, and the interaction between everyone.
So Ava wants to know why some of them have beards.
So most male goats will grow beards, and I don't know for sure, but our pygmy goats might also grow beards when they get older.
So Nathan wants to know, is there a boss?
That's a very good question. I would say we, in general, have 3 bosses here out of all of our goats, and they are these 3 right here, front and center for you. So Mustang, Cooper, and Pinto, they kind of show everyone that they will be the first to get fed. They will push everyone else around a little bit.
Just like that.
Like so. But the other goats definitely stand up to them when they're feeling up for it. Our little pygmy goats will stand up to them quite a bit.
And actually, talking about why we only have male goats here at the zoo, to compare us to us, as guys are out there trying to impress women, you'll put on different clothes, different scents. These goats will kind of do the same thing, but they don't get the luxury of having cologne. So what these male goats will do is when there are females around, is they will pee on themselves, and then use that urine to attract the scent of other females to let them know how they are and to get them interested in them.
So what routine vet care do they receive over the years?
These guys will receive hoof trims, so every couple of months we take a look at their hooves and we trim them back if necessary. They do a pretty good job of keeping them maintained. So we just want to make sure that there's no overgrowth or anything stuck in their hooves, anything like that. They also receive immunizations if they need it, and our vet staff keep a really close eye on their skin condition, how their fur is growing in, and we definitely take a really close look at how they're eating, how much water they're drinking, and what their poop looks like. That's actually one initial indicator of something being wrong internally, is if they have some funny looking poop. So we keep a close eye on that as well.
So, how fast can goats run?
Get some crackers and find out.
I don't know the number on that. These guys are pretty quick.
So, someone is asking, have we ever had any success or tips using tennis balls or pool noodles on their horns to keep them from using them as weapons?
So these guys don't really injure each other with their horns. We haven't tried anything like that. They will headbutt each other, but as you can see, they're actually nice and rounded on the ends. So there's no way that they can really hurt each other seriously with them. If anything, they more so use their foreheads when they're headbutting each other. So I would say that might be their greatest weapons against each other.
All right, Christina, here's a fun question. If you were a goat, which one would you be?
Oh no, I can't choose. I love all of them so much. I really don't know how I would even answer that question. They all have very different personalities.
Which personalities like you? Put it that way.
So tough. I'm gonna go with Bach, who's kind of hiding over here. So Bach's one of our pygmy goats. He kind of likes to stand up for his other little pygmy goats, but he doesn't really seek out a lot of aggressive situations with the larger ones. They all like to headbutt each other, but Bach kind of stands up for his little buddies when he thinks it's necessary. So I'm going to go with Bach.
So, one last question. Do we have any fainting goats here at the Akron Zoo?
We do not. None of our goats are fainting goats. That's an interesting question.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for taking some time with us. Before we go, we just want to let you guys know how much these goats do miss you. We can't wait to be open. When we do, we're looking forward to having you guys come out with your family, friends, field trips, organizations for company picnics this summer. So come on back out, see our zoo now that you know a little bit more about our goats, and visit animals like our goats up here at Pride of Africa.
Brian, give a nice goat accent. Come on.
Bad. Have a great day, everyone.